You've read the books, watched the videos, made the plans. You know what you want. You even know how to get there. And yet, you don't move. Or you start strong and quietly retreat. Why? Not because you're lazy. Not because you don't care. But because somewhere deep inside you're fighting yourself. This audiobook is for the dreamer who's tired of starting over. For the capable person stuck in delay. For the overthinker who keeps rewriting the email but never presses send. For the perfectionist who'd rather wait than risk being seen in progress. Self-sabotage doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like indecision. Sometimes it looks like, I'm too busy. Sometimes it looks like disappearing just when things are finally going well. But here's the truth. You're not the problem. Your pattern is. And patterns can be rewritten. Welcome. In today's audiobook we will be discussing how to stop self-sabotaging, get out of your own way. An audiobook written by a man. In this audiobook we're going beneath the surface, into the emotional and psychological roots of procrastination, perfectionism, inconsistency, and fear of visibility. You'll learn how to stop running from your potential and start standing inside it, with clarity, softness, and self-trust. Each chapter is like a quiet conversation with your inner self, the part of you that knows you're meant for more but isn't sure how to stop getting in the way. This isn't a hustle guide. It's a healing space, a place to remember who you were before fear became your habit. So find a quiet corner, press play, and begin the journey back to yourself. The version of you that takes up space, takes aligned action, and doesn't apologize for wanting more. Chapter 1. Why you procrastinate even when you care. A young woman sat at her desk in her office in South Africa, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across her face. Her deadline was in 2 hours. The project was something she had pitched herself, something she cared deeply about. But here she was, scrolling through old vacation photos, heart pounding, knowing she was letting herself down again. Halfway across the world in London, a young man refreshed his email inbox for the 10th time. He'd been meaning to submit his art portfolio to that gallery since January. It was July. The folder sat neatly on his desktop, complete, edited, titled Final. Still he hadn't sent it. In Tokyo, a young woman rehearsed her TEDx pitch out loud, every word polished to perfection. She had been selected months ago, but now, just days before the event, she was thinking about backing out. She told her friends she was too busy, but deep down the fear was louder than her preparation. Why do so many of us delay what we care about? Why do we pause when it matters most? This chapter is for the part of you that wants to do better, and keeps hitting the invisible wall. The truth we avoid, it's not laziness. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's mismanaged emotional pain. That sounds heavy, and it is. The reason you delay your dreams isn't because you don't care. It's often because you care so much that your nervous system freezes under the pressure. You see, when a task triggers our core vulnerabilities, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, our brain sounds the alarm. The subconscious says, this is risky. Let's wait. And so we scroll. We clean. We rearrange. We tell ourselves, I'll do it later, when what we really mean is, I don't feel safe doing it now. It's a form of protection. Your mind has learned to delay in order to protect your sense of self. The hidden emotions behind delay. Let's break it down further. There are emotional payoffs to procrastinating, often ones we don't see. Avoiding judgment. If you never submit your work, you'll never be rejected. That gives the illusion of control. Preserving identity. If you've always seen yourself as the almost successful one, finishing the work threatens that identity. Who are you if you actually achieve it? Escaping overwhelm. Procrastination can be a way to numb decision fatigue. When life feels chaotic, even good things feel too big. Delaying discomfort. The discomfort of starting, of being seen, of being responsible. We delay that pain hoping it'll feel easier later. It rarely does. This cycle is emotionally taxing. You end up not only avoiding the task, but also carrying the guilt, shame, and self-blame that follow. That guilt becomes part of your identity. Gentle confrontation. How long will you wait? Here's the honest truth. Procrastination is not just a bad habit. It's a self-identity loop. The longer you delay something, the more it feels like proof that you're not capable. And the more incapable you feel, the harder it is to begin. It's painful, isn't it? Watching yourself stay small. Wanting so much more and yet choosing, again and again, the safety of not now. And I say this not to shame you, but to wake you gently, because you are not alone. This is the invisible battle many high achievers, creatives, and dreamers face worldwide. You're not lazy. You're scared. And that fear deserves compassion, not condemnation. A moment of healing, rewriting the narrative. Let's pause for a moment here. Breathe in slowly and exhale. Imagine the version of you who doesn't wait anymore. Not because you're fearless, but because you've learned how to move with the fear. Picture her. Picture him. Picture them showing up, trembling maybe, but showing up still. That version of you isn't perfect, but they are free. Let's rewrite what procrastination has meant for you. It's not who you are. It's something you've used. A shield. A cloak. A pattern that protected you when you didn't feel ready. But you are ready now. Not to be perfect, but to begin. Reflection questions, spoken journal style. Ask yourself gently, what am I afraid will happen if I succeed? What identity am I trying to protect by staying in delay? What would change if I allowed myself to take messy action? Write down your answers if you can. Don't judge them. Just notice. Awareness is always the first act of healing. Then do this affirmations. Say these with me. Let's anchor this with truth. Repeat these affirmations slowly, either out loud or in your heart. I am allowed to begin before I feel fully ready. My fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal that I care. Progress matters more than perfection. I'm safe to try. As we close this first chapter, I want you to remember this. You are not broken because you hesitate. You're human. And being human means sometimes you'll pause, sometimes you'll hide. But it also means you can return to work. Again and again. Procrastination is not the end of your story. It's just a chapter you're ready to move beyond. In the next chapter, we'll explore one of the quietest forms of sabotage, the fear of being seen. Why do so many of us shrink when we should shine? If this spoke to your heart, subscribe and follow this audiobook series. There's healing in every chapter. There's clarity waiting for you. And always remember, you are not behind. You are becoming. Chapter 2, The Fear of Being Seen. The spotlight that burns. Just like the story of a young lady who always knew she had something to say. Her poetry, written in the quiet corners of her Mumbai apartment, was raw and moving. One night, after much encouragement from a friend, she shared a short piece on social media. It got hundreds of comments, praise, tears, messages saying, "This saved me." And then, silence. She never posted again. In Toronto, a young man finally landed his first lead role in a local theater production. After years of supporting roles, he should have been celebrating. But the night before opening, he got sick. Not the kind you treat with pills, the kind your body creates when your mind is terrified. He withdrew. A lady deleted her business page just weeks after launching. The pictures were perfect. Her offer was clear. But something about being seen, being known, visible, judged, felt unbearable. This chapter is about the deep, tender fear that rises not when we fail, but when we're finally seen. When the spotlight lands. When the attention comes. When there's nowhere left to hide. The emotional truth. Visibility feels dangerous. The fear of being seen is primal. It's not about being looked at, it's about being exposed. For many of us, visibility equals vulnerability. It means letting people into the parts of us we've carefully managed, hidden, or protected. It's the fear that if people really saw us, all of us, they wouldn't applaud, they'd walk away. Here's why this fear feels so real. In childhood, we may have been praised for being quiet, obedient, invisible. In school, we learned that standing out could mean rejection, mockery, or jealousy. In work or relationships, being too good sometimes draws resentment. So our subconscious drew a line. Being seen is unsafe. Being small is secure. What hiding looks like. You might not realize you're afraid of being seen. Because hiding doesn't always look like running. Sometimes it looks like downplaying your success with jokes. Saying it's nothing when you worked so hard. Sabotaging opportunities before they get big. Never finishing the project so it doesn't draw too much attention. Shrinking your dreams so they don't threaten anyone. And here's the twist. You might crave the spotlight and fear it at the same time. You want to be known, but not misunderstood. You want to be celebrated, but not targeted. You want to take up space, but not be too much. That inner tug-of-war is exhausting. Gentle confrontation. The cost of hiding. Let's speak softly but honestly. Hiding might feel safe, but it has a cost. When you dim your light, you don't just protect yourself from pain. You block yourself from joy, impact, and connection. You keep waiting for a moment when it'll feel safe to be visible. But that moment may never arrive. The truth is, confidence doesn't come before visibility. It grows through it. You don't need to be perfect to be seen. You need to be present. The world doesn't need your polish. It needs your presence. And yes, not everyone will like you. But the ones who need your voice, your art, your ideas, they can't find you if you stay hidden. The psychology behind it. Shame and identity. Psychologically, the fear of being seen is often rooted in shame. The deep belief that something about you is unworthy. So visibility threatens that internal lie. If you've been told, implicitly or directly, that you're too loud, too sensitive, too ambitious, too different, then showing up feels like a betrayal of the self you've learned to protect. And yet, hiding reinforces the shame. Every time you silence yourself, you confirm the lie that your voice isn't worthy. But that's not the truth. The truth is, you are allowed to be seen, even if you're not yet sure you're ready. A moment of healing. A new relationship with the spotlight. Let's reimagine visibility. What if being seen wasn't about performance but presence? You don't have to scream. You don't have to be dazzled. You don't even have to be fully confident. You just have to show up honestly. You can be powerful and gentle. You can take up space without apologizing. You can be brilliant without needing to dim your light so others feel comfortable. The spotlight isn't the enemy. It's simply light. And your truth is not something to hide from light. It's something meant to shine through it. Reflection questions, spoken journal style. Let's reflect together. Ask yourself gently, what am I afraid people will see if I become visible? When was the first time I learned that attention could be dangerous? What would change in my life if I allowed myself to be fully seen? Take a deep breath. You don't need to answer everything perfectly. Just be curious, not critical. Then do this affirmations. Speak these softly. Repeat these affirmations. They are your bridge to freedom. I am safe to be seen as I am. My visibility is not a threat. It is a gift. I do not need to shrink to make others comfortable. The fear of being seen is tender. It touches the softest parts of who we are. But you are not alone in this fear. And you do not have to walk through it alone. Let this chapter be your turning point. A quiet rebellion against hiding. A gentle yes to showing up anyway. In the next chapter, we'll explore something more subtle but just as powerful. Addiction to chaos. Why do so many of us create drama, stress, and urgency to feel alive? And how to break that loop. If you're finding comfort or clarity in this audiobook, make sure to subscribe or follow, so each chapter finds you when you need it most. You don't have to hide anymore. You are worthy of being seen. Chapter 3. You're addicted to chaos. Let's start with a story of a young lady who moved into her new apartment in Berlin. Minimalist, quiet, everything she thought she wanted. She had finally left a toxic relationship, cut off draining friendships, and started therapy. But just 3 weeks in, she found herself texting her ex, picking fights in online forums, taking on a chaotic freelance gig with impossible deadlines. I don't know what's wrong with me, she whispered during her session. Everything's finally calm. But I feel unsettled. Another young man across the ocean in Sao Paulo, he had just paid off all his debts. For the first time in years he had money saved. Within a month he accidentally missed 2 payments, signed up for 3 unnecessary subscriptions, and loaned money he couldn't afford to lose. And in New Delhi, a young lady had gotten a job she prayed for, stable, well-paying, close to home. But within weeks she started arriving late, missing deadlines, pushing boundaries with her boss. She was confused by her own behavior. Why can't I just enjoy peace? She asked her friend. Here's the painful truth. Sometimes when chaos has been your normal, peace feels like danger. Understanding the addiction to chaos. Let's be clear. Chaos addiction is rarely conscious. No one wants to be in survival mode. But if chaos was the environment you grew up in or the one you've lived in for years, it wires your nervous system to expect disorder. You learn to feel safe in unpredictability. You become hyper-alert. And when things finally calm down, the quiet feels unfamiliar, suspicious. So your body goes looking, unconsciously, for the next storm. This is why you might start drama in relationships even when things are going well. Overcommit your schedule when you finally have rest. Sabotage your finances right after a breakthrough. Chase multiple emergencies instead of focusing on long-term goals. It's not because you're reckless. It's because your body associates peace with vulnerability and chaos with control. The root of the pattern. Emotional memory. Imagine this. If as a child you only got attention when something was wrong, you may have learned to associate stress with love. If you were praised only when things were intense, solving problems, fixing family issues, you may have equated worth with overfunctioning. If your nervous system has been in fight or flight mode for years, then stillness feels like a threat. This is an emotional memory. Even if your mind says, I want calm, your body might whisper, that's not safe. So you create chaos, not because you want to suffer, but because suffering feels familiar. Predictable. Home. Gentle confrontation. The fear beneath the storm. Here's something most people won't tell you. Some people chase chaos not because they're broken, but because chaos gives them something to do with their pain. It's easier to be in crisis than to sit with stillness. It's easier to focus on the external mess than to face the inner ache. You don't fear peace. You fear what peace might reveal. That without the chaos you don't know who you are. That your worth isn't defined by how much you fix, hustle, or suffer. That if things finally go well, you could still feel empty. It's not easy to admit this. But awareness is not shame. It's power. Real life shift. Learning a new normal. So how do you stop being addicted to chaos? First, understand that it's not a switch you flip. You don't cure it overnight. You retrain your body to feel safe in peace, one moment at a time. That means sitting in silence for 3 minutes even when it feels uncomfortable. Not replying to drama texts even if your fingers itch to type. Choosing the slower, stable path, even when the risky one feels more familiar. Letting boredom exist without rushing to fix it. You might feel restless, lonely, exposed. That's okay. That's your system detoxing from chaos. The more you practice stillness, the more your body learns. Peace is not punishment. Peace is permission. Reflection questions, spoken journal style. Let's pause here. Gently ask yourself, when was the last time I created chaos without realizing it? What does peace feel like in my body? Uncomfortable? Safe? What part of me believes I only matter when I'm in crisis? Be honest. Don't try to impress yourself. Just notice the patterns with love. Then do this affirmations. Say these with me. Let's speak healing over your inner chaos. Repeat these gently. I am safe in stillness. I do not need chaos to prove my worth. I release the belief that struggle is my identity. Say them again if they feel foreign. Not because you believe them yet, but because you want to. You're not crazy for craving chaos. You're just healing from a world that taught you pain was normal. But healing doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming peaceful without guilt. The next chapter will explore a common lie many of us believe, that discipline limits our freedom. In truth, discipline is the key to freedom, not its enemy. You'll learn how to reclaim structure without shame. If this chapter opens something in you, I invite you to subscribe, follow, and continue this journey. Your healing is not an accident. It's a decision. You are allowed to choose peace, even if it feels unfamiliar, especially then. Chapter 4. Discipline isn't the opposite of freedom. A common misbelief. A young lady, a freelance writer in New York, used to resist routines with everything in her. I didn't leave my 9 to 5 just to put myself in another prison, she'd say. She believed that true freedom meant waking up whenever she wanted, writing when inspiration struck, and living life on her own terms. But 6 months into her free lifestyle, she was drowning in missed deadlines, self-doubt, and spiraling stress. Freedom didn't feel like peace anymore. Felt like chaos. Also in England, a young man had a similar experience. After retiring early from his tech job, he promised himself endless mornings on the balcony, sipping espresso, writing a novel. But with no structure, days melted into weeks. He hadn't written a single chapter. And worse, he felt more stuck now than ever. Across the globe in Mumbai, a young lady who is a dancer avoided setting goals for her choreography. She said discipline killed creativity. But eventually she realized something startling. Without structure, her creative energy had nowhere to land. This chapter is for anyone who's been told that freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. Because the truth is more nuanced and far more liberating. The myth: discipline equals restriction. For many of us, the word discipline carries the weight of punishment. We associate it with control, rigidity, even shame. Maybe it reminds you of strict parents, suffocating routines, or school systems that crushed your spirit. So it makes sense that when you think of freedom, especially emotional or creative freedom, you push back against anything that smells like rules. But what if that idea is costing you your peace? What if the very thing you avoid, structure, is the thing that gives you the space to breathe, build, and bloom? The truth: freedom without direction is a trap. Let's clarify something powerful. Discipline isn't the opposite of freedom. In fact, it is the path to freedom. When you don't have systems in place, even soft, flexible ones, your day gets hijacked by whatever feels urgent or distracting. You spend energy making the same decisions over and over. Should I start now? Should I rest more? What if I wait for the perfect time? And without realizing it, you become a prisoner of your impulses. True freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about having the power and clarity to do what matters most, consistently. That's what discipline offers. Gentle confrontation. Your future self is waiting. Let me ask you this. What has being free actually cost you? For some, it's sleep. For others, peace of mind. For many, it's the quiet ache of untapped potential. The version of you that exists 5 years from now. They're watching your choices today. They're hoping you'll stop seeing structure as a punishment and start seeing it as a love language. You do not have to become rigid or robotic to be disciplined. You do not need to wake up at 4 a.m., run 5 miles, and plan every minute of your life. You only need enough structure to support the life you want and protect it from your own self-sabotaging habits. Discipline isn't a cage. It's the container where your dreams can safely grow. Global example: the architecture of greatness. Look at every great artist, athlete, entrepreneur, anywhere in the world, and you'll find discipline beneath their freedom. BTS, the global music phenomenon from South Korea, didn't become legendary by winging it. Behind the scenes were thousands of hours of dance practice, vocal coaching, rehearsals, training, structure. J.K. Rowling didn't write Harry Potter on inspiration alone. She wrote in cafes, often with limited time, squeezing chapters into nap times and coffee breaks. Nelson Mandela, even during 27 years in prison, kept a daily routine of exercise and reading. He understood. The body may be confined, but discipline keeps the mind free. Their freedom, creative, emotional, and global, was built on the quiet power of daily discipline. Healing shift. Redefining discipline for yourself. You don't need to fear discipline. You need to redefine it. Discipline can look like waking up at the same time each morning to protect your mental health. Scheduling daily writing time to keep your voice alive. Taking one day off each week non-negotiably to rest and reset. It's not about control. It's about care. It's the invisible hand that catches you when motivation fails. And motivation will fail. That's not pessimism, it's human nature. But discipline, that's your quiet anchor in the storm. Reflection questions. Ask yourself with love, not judgment. Where in my life am I mistaking chaos for freedom? What routines would actually soothe me, not suffocate me? If I showed up for myself daily, even gently, what could I create? Write your answers down. Or just sit with them. Sometimes asking the right questions is the discipline. Then do this affirmations. Say these with me. Breathe deeply. Let these truths settle into your nervous system. Discipline is not punishment. It is preparation for the life I want. Structure gives my dreams a place to live and breathe. I am free because I choose what matters and protect it daily. You don't need to hustle harder. You don't need to become perfect. You only need to create space. A gentle, nourishing space, where the version of you that finishes can finally step forward. Discipline isn't the enemy. It's the bridge. In the next chapter, we'll talk about another major block, perfectionism. Why do we try so hard to get it right, that we never get it done? If this chapter gives you clarity, subscribe and follow this audiobook series. Your healing journey deserves structure and support. And always remember, you're not here to force your way through life. You're here to flow forward, anchored by habits that hold you, not hurt you. Chapter 5. Let go of perfectionism. The illusion of almost ready. A young woman had been working on her blog for 3 years. She lived in Stockholm and loved writing about wellness, but no post had ever gone live. Her drafts were pristine, poetic even, but she always found a sentence to tweak, an image to update, a title to rethink. I'll publish when it's perfect, she told herself. And so nothing ever went out. Also, another young man had a business idea he carried in his heart like a secret. He knew it could work. He'd done the research, watched the webinars, filled 4 notebooks. But every time he tried to launch, he'd say, "Not yet. I need to fix one more thing." Same as a young lady who was planning her wedding. She cried over centerpieces, fonts, and photo angles. Not because they mattered deeply, but because perfection felt like her only form of control in a chaotic world. All 3 of them were trapped in the same prison. Perfectionism, the art of almost doing, almost starting, almost living, forever. What perfectionism really is, and what it's not. Perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about fear dressed in ambition's clothing. We often praise perfectionism as a sign of excellence. But at its core, it's not about doing things well. It's about avoiding shame. It's the belief that if you can make something flawless, then you won't be judged, rejected, or seen as not enough. Perfectionism is not a personality trait. It's a coping mechanism. It says, if I never release it, they can't criticize it. If I always look composed, no one will know I'm struggling. If I delay until it's flawless, I stay in control. But here's the cost. You never let your real life begin. The psychological roots of perfectionism. Many perfectionists were raised in environments where love was earned, not given. Where praise followed performance, not presence. Where mistakes were met with anger, silence, or shame. So we learn. To be lovable, I must impress. To be safe, I must avoid errors. To be worthy, I must achieve more, and then more. Perfectionism is a trauma-informed response. It's how your nervous system learns to secure belonging. It often starts young but grows with us, into our careers, parenting, creativity, relationships. We become adults who never feel done, never feel good enough, never let things be. And tragically, we often delay joy until we've earned it. Gentle confrontation. What is it costing you? Let's be honest for a moment. How many things have you not started because it wasn't the right time? How many moments have you ruined trying to perfect them? How many opportunities have you walked away from, not because you couldn't do them, but because you couldn't do them flawlessly? Perfectionism robs you of progress. It keeps your art unpublished, your talents unseen, your heart guarded. Worse still, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You wait until you're good enough, but that day never comes. So you don't show up. And because you don't show up, you never improve. And because you never improve, you believe you weren't good enough to begin with. And so it loops. A healing shift. From perfection to permission. Imagine what would happen if you let go of the pressure to be perfect. And give yourself permission to be human. Your life doesn't need to look like a curated feed or a well-edited manuscript. Your words can stumble. Your projects can evolve. Your first try can be clumsy and still sacred. What if your value didn't come from how flawless you were, but from how honest and willing you were to grow? What if we started measuring success not by polish, but by presence? A moment of reflection. Real progress looks messy. Let's reflect. Progress rarely looks like neat checklists and perfect planners. It looks like the artist releases the song even if the mix isn't perfect. The entrepreneur launched the website knowing they'll fix it later. The mother lets the house be messy so she can rest. The student submitting the assignment before she rewrites it again for the 10th time. Real growth is gritty. It's full of typos, awkwardness, detours, and courage. You don't become free when you finally meet your impossible standards. You become free when you stop needing them. Reflection questions, spoken journal style. Ask yourself with kindness, what am I afraid people will think if they see my imperfections? Where did I learn that mistakes are dangerous? What would it look like to finish something, even if it's not perfect? Don't rush the answers. Let them rise gently. Then do this affirmations. Speak these with me. I release the need to be perfect. I choose to be real. My worth is not defined by flawless outcomes but by my brave attempts. Done is better than perfect, and I am safe to let go. Say them again if you need to. Let them sink in. Perfectionism promises protection, but delivers paralysis. You don't need to be flawless to be worthy of starting, or finishing, or being seen. The version of you who shows up imperfectly will go further than the one still waiting for the perfect moment. Let this be the moment you release the pressure. Let this be the moment you decide, my life is allowed to be a little messy and still beautiful. In our next chapter, we'll explore something that often hides beneath perfectionism: imposter syndrome. What do you do when you're showing up but deep down you still feel like a fraud? Subscribe to this audiobook series so you don't miss what's next. Your healing is in motion, and you're not alone. You're not broken. You're breaking through. Chapter 6. Showing up when you feel like a fraud. A universal feeling. A young lady adjusted her blazer for the 3rd time before walking into the boardroom in Sao Paulo. She was the youngest director at her firm. Brilliant, accomplished, but today her hands wouldn't stop trembling. She felt like a child in borrowed clothes, certain someone would expose her as a fluke. Same as a young man in New York, stared at the blinking cursor on his manuscript. His agent had just secured a major publishing deal, yet he couldn't shake the voice whispering, "You're not really a writer. You just got lucky they choose you." Also, a young woman stood backstage minutes before delivering her keynote. She had won awards, been invited to speak worldwide, but in that moment her mind echoed one thought: they think I'm smarter than I actually am. If you've ever doubted your right to be in the room, to share your work, or even to take up space, this chapter is for you. The core wound. Imposter syndrome. There's a name for this invisible wound: imposter syndrome. It's the belief that you're not really as competent as others think you are, and worse, that it's only a matter of time before you're found out. And while this term is common, its effects are deeply personal. You might Minimize your achievements, chalking them up to luck or timing. Overwork, trying to compensate for a success you feel you didn't truly earn. Procrastinate, because if you never truly give your best, no one can judge your real ability. Decline opportunities because deep down you feel unworthy of them. Imposter syndrome isn't about lack of skill. It's about a fragile sense of self, one built on conditional acceptance. Somewhere in your story you learned that being seen might lead to shame, exposure, or rejection. Global truth: you're not alone in this. Here's what's both heartbreaking and healing. The more accomplished someone is, the more likely they are to feel like a fraud. Nobel Prize-winning scientist Maya Angelou once said, "I have written 11 books, but each time I think, they're going to find out now." Award-winning actor Tom Hanks said in an interview, "No matter what we've done, there comes a point where you think, how did I get here? When are they going to discover that I am, in fact, a fraud and take everything away?" This isn't just your fear, it's a human fear. When you're stepping into growth, visibility, and expansion, your old self-image doesn't always rise with you. And so you're left feeling like you're wearing success, not owning it. The psychology behind the fraud feeling. Let's go deeper. Imposter syndrome usually stems from early experiences. Overachieving to earn love. If you grew up being praised only for success, you may fear failure equals being unlovable. Being the only one. First-gen college students, immigrants, women in male-dominated industries, or minorities in elite spaces often feel like they must constantly prove they belong. Unrealistic internal standards. If you were taught that success must look perfect, you'll always feel like you fall short. When your self-worth is conditional, every achievement feels unstable. You worry it might crumble if someone just looks too closely. And so, you hesitate. You hide behind false modesty. You over-prepare or underperform. You question yourself constantly. Gentle confrontation. The lie you've believed. Here's the confronting truth. Imposter syndrome is a lie, told by your past, repeated by your fear, and believed by the version of you that doesn't yet see their own value. The lie says, if people knew the real me, they wouldn't admire me. But here's what's real. The real you, with your flaws, doubts, and unfinished edges, is the one people trust, learn from, and are inspired by. Not because you're flawless, but because you show up anyway. You don't have to feel confident to be impactful. You don't have to believe you belong for you to belong. Courage is not the absence of doubt. It's your decision to keep showing up even when the doubt comes with you. A healing visualization. Showing up anyway. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture yourself walking into a room where everyone knows your background, your story, your imperfections, and still wants to hear what you have to say. Picture your name on a book cover, on a certificate, on a door, and feel the warmth of knowing you earned it. Even if your mind resists, let your heart believe it, just for now. This is what healing looks like. Choosing to stand in your story rather than run from it. Reflection prompts, a quiet inner check-in. Ask yourself gently, what part of me still believes I have to earn my worth daily? Who told me that I had to be perfect to be accepted? What would I do if I fully believed I belonged here? You might find that the answers are soft but revealing. Write them down or simply carry them with you today. Let's do this affirmations. Anchor the truth within you. Let's speak healing into your inner voice. Repeat with softness. I do not need to feel perfect to be powerful. My presence is not a mistake. I am meant to be here. I choose to show up even when fear tells me not to. You don't need to outrun your doubt to do great things. You just need to walk with it, kindly, gently, and with your head held high. You are not a fraud. You are becoming. If this chapter resonated with your soul, subscribe and stay with me. We are just getting started. In the next chapter, we'll explore why consistency, not intensity, is the secret to long-term growth. It's time to break free from the all-or-nothing mindset. This journey is yours. And every time you listen, every time you reflect, you're stepping deeper into your truth. And always remember, you don't have to prove your worth. You only need to own it. Chapter 7. Consistency over intensity. A familiar burnout pattern. A young man who is a software engineer in Bangalore woke up at 4 a.m. on Monday with fire in his belly. This week will be different. He made a flawless schedule. Gym, work, meal prep, meditation, side hustle, repeat. For 2 days he was unstoppable. But by Thursday he skipped the gym. Friday he missed his journal entry. By Saturday he was back on the couch binge watching YouTube, whispering to himself, "I'll start again Monday." In New York, a young woman signed up for a writing challenge, 5,000 words a day for 2 weeks. On day 1 she wrote 6,300. On day 2 she burned out. By day 4 the document sat untouched on her desktop. Every time she passed her laptop she felt like a failure. Also in Lagos, a young man was determined to master personal finance. He read 5 books in 5 days. But 2 weeks later he was back to emotional spending and hiding from his bank app. Why does this happen? Why do we give everything, and then give up? This chapter is for the perfectionist part of you that believes it only counts if it's intense. Let's talk about why small steps, taken repeatedly, are far more powerful than heroic bursts. The illusion of intensity. We've been conditioned to glorify the extreme. We admire the person who loses 20 pounds in 1 month. We cheer for the entrepreneur who builds an empire in 90 days. We idolize the viral overnight success. But the truth is, consistency builds what intensity can only spark. Intensity feels exciting. It gives you the illusion of transformation. But it's not sustainable. It burns bright, but it burns fast. The gym every day for 2 weeks doesn't matter if you never go again for the next 3 months. Writing 10,000 words in a single sitting means little if you never finish the book. Reading a stack of self-help books doesn't transform you. Applying one lesson consistently does. This chapter invites you to leave behind the performance and fall in love with the process. Psychological insight. The addiction to grand gestures. Why do we chase intensity? Because intensity gives us a dopamine high. Feels like change. It feels heroic. It gives us identity. I'm finally doing it. But beneath it there's fear. Fear that we're not enough unless we're extraordinary. Fear that if we go slowly we'll never arrive. For many of us, slowness has been associated with laziness, weakness, or failure. So we overcorrect. We go hard. We go fast. And when it inevitably collapses we tell ourselves, "See? I can't stick to anything." It's not your discipline that's broken. It's your approach. You're trying to sprint a marathon. Gentle confrontation. What if small was enough? Let me ask you something difficult. What if you let it be small and consistent and trusted that it was enough? Would that be boring? Would it feel like you're not achieving enough? Or does it feel scary? Because maybe your identity has been wrapped in urgency. Always chasing, always fixing, always proving. But healing doesn't come from intensity. Growth doesn't bloom in chaos. It blooms in repetition. In showing up on ordinary days. In brushing your teeth even when you don't feel like it. In writing 100 words even when your goal was 1,000. This isn't failure. It's the foundation. A realignment. Redefining success. Success is not about how fast you get there. It's about whether you're willing to return, again and again, even when it's not glamorous. In Tokyo, Yui practices her piano scales every day for just 15 minutes. In Sao Paulo, Marcos does 5 push-ups every morning, not 50. In Cape Town, Ayanda writes 1 paragraph of poetry a day. They're not doing anything flashy. But after a year, Yui plays with grace. Marcos can now do 50 push-ups without struggle. Ayanda has 2 full poetry collections. You don't need more motivation. You need more repetition. Healing pause. Sit with this truth. Breathe with me. Inhale, and imagine releasing the pressure to do it all today. Exhale, and imagine choosing something small and true and doable. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to build trust with yourself again. Trust is built in small moments. Setting the alarm and getting up. Drinking water instead of soda. Opening your notebook even if you only write a sentence. These moments stack. They accumulate. They become identity. The person who shows up, gently, faithfully, becomes the person who transforms. Reflection questions, spoken journal style. Ask yourself, where in my life am I chasing intensity instead of consistency? What small action can I commit to for the next 7 days, no matter how I feel? How would my life change if I made peace with slow progress? Write down your answers. Or whisper them to yourself. Let them echo. Then do this affirmations. Say these with me. Speak them from the heart. I release the need to do it all today. Small steps taken with love are powerful. I trust myself to return again and again. Consistency is a quiet kind of power. It doesn't demand attention. But over time it changes everything. This chapter isn't just a reminder. It's a new invitation. To walk slowly. To start small. To build something real. And in the next chapter we'll talk about showing up when you feel like a fraud. That deep imposter syndrome that creeps in when you're finally making progress. If this spoke to your heart, subscribe and keep listening. Each chapter is a mirror. A balm. A path forward. You don't need to be extreme. You just need to be here. Still breathing. Still trying. Still becoming. Before you close this audiobook and return to your world, take a breath. You made it here, not just to the final chapter but through layers of patterns, pain, and quiet battles that few people see. You've walked through the roots of your procrastination, your perfectionism, your fear of being seen, and the belief that maybe you're not enough. And you didn't turn away. That matters. Because healing doesn't always look like loud breakthroughs or perfect mornings. Sometimes it's the soft decision to try again tomorrow. To speak kinder to yourself. To show up even if your hands shake. Self-sabotage is not your identity. It's just a habit you learned when you were trying to stay safe. But now you're learning how to feel safe in your power. In your voice. In your action. And that changes everything. So here's what I want you to remember. You are not behind. You're just unlearning what no longer serves you. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You already have what it takes. The discipline. The clarity. The strength. Let this audiobook be the beginning, not the conclusion. Revisit the chapters when you need to. Let the truth sink deeper each time. And most of all, keep choosing yourself in the small, ordinary moments. That's where transformation truly lives. If this audiobook helped you see yourself more clearly, please consider subscribing to this channel. Share this with someone else who feels stuck. You never know whose healing journey your courage might ignite. Thank you for letting me be part of your growth. You're not alone, and you're not done becoming. The next version of you is already unfolding. Trust the process. Keep showing up. And keep going.